When my time comes, will I stand up?
Welcome to Culture Screen, where we analyze culture. In this episode, we are summarizing the 15th episode from Season 6 of the Sopranos series titled Remember When. The episode first aired on April 22nd, 2007. In the beginning, Paulie stops by Tony's house to share some pressing news. Paulie shares that the FBI is investigating the home where Tony buried Willie Overall, his first victim. Paulie tells Tony that his source tells him that after Larry Barisi was arrested at the screening of Cleaver, as Paulie and Tony are watching the home from a distance, the FBI are fast at work digging out the remains of Willie Overall. As a result of this, Tony and Paulie head to Florida as a way of hiding as things cool off in Jersey. As Paulie and Tony are preparing for their trip, we see the camera zooms in on Paulie's white shoes, which represent death. Throughout the series, white shoes have been present right before someone dies. Bobby's first victim is killed while white shoes are in the washing machine. Johnny Sack's white shoes are cleaned right before he passes away. Paulie packs 3 pairs of white shoes, and we see during his trip with Tony, he almost exclusively talks about the murders they either committed or witnessed. In the following scene, Uncle Pat goes to visit Uncle Junior. As he is speaking to Junior, he comes to the realization that something is odd with Junior, and he recommends that they plan an escape so Junior can be free again. Uncle Pat says that he can drive him off in his car, but midway through their conversation, Junior is reminded that the facility will be serving enchiladas, and he becomes so happy that he forgets all about the conversation he was having with Uncle Pat. As soon as Uncle Pat leaves, Junior starts up a poker gambling racket in the mental health clinic. He ends up giving his expensive watch to one of the guards as a way of bribing him into bringing in soda and candy from the outside, items which are not allowed in the clinic because of how certain patients can be affected by the sugar and caffeine. We see Uncle Junior uses red and white buttons as casino chips for betting money, and he sells candy and soda on the side as well. The viewer can see Junior is back to turning a profit by breaking the rules again. Later on, we see Tony and Paulie are driving down to Florida to hide from the New Jersey authorities. Along their way, Paulie continues to bring up past crimes and murders committed by Tony and the DeMeo crew. We see this makes Tony feel a bit odd about Paulie, especially since it's a cardinal rule to never speak about past crimes in their life of crime. As Tony realizes just how talkative Paulie is, he starts to wonder if it was Paulie who leaked the joke Ralph Cifaretto made about Johnny Sack's wife, Jeannie. Paulie sharing this joke was what started the conflict between the New York and New Jersey crews after all. When Tony asks Paulie if he knows who could have leaked the joke to Johnny Sack, Paulie gets defensive and he tells Tony that he has no idea who could have done such a thing. At one of their stops, they end up visiting Beansy. Beansy has a dealer who sells stolen goods, and he wants to introduce him to Tony. After their business conversation, Beansy invites a few women to accompany them, and Paulie proceeds to speak about the past yet again. Beansy and Paulie think the girls will be impressed if they talk about past crimes, and so they proceed, and eventually Tony ends up sharing that the lowest form of conversation is remember when. Clearly, Tony understands that talking about past crimes can only end up being recorded and used against him in court. In another scene, we see Phil Leotardo and Doc Santoro are having dinner together. At the restaurant, Phil is basically celebrating with Doc about his new position as boss of the Lupertazzi family. As Phil is eating, Doc reaches over with his fork to grab a piece of meat from Phil's plate. Doc does this as a way of demonstrating to Phil that he is the real alpha in the crew. We see Butchie even looks up, showing just how shocked he is that Doc would disrespect Phil in this way. As a result of Doc Santoro's decision to whack Gary, Phil's protege, and the amount of disrespect he showed Phil at the restaurant, Phil and Butchie set up an ambush for Santoro. Phil arranges for a hitman to whack Santoro one night as he is leaving a massage parlor. Now with Doc Santoro dead, Phil becomes the de facto boss of the Lupertazzi crime family.
Remember when is the lowest form of conversation.
Remember, I am summarizing this entire series as well as other popular works of literature, movies, and TV shows as well. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next episode or series. Let me know what you'd like me to summarize in the comments section below. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter for additional content. Visit our merch store and support us on Patreon if you can. Doing this helps my channel out tremendously. I really thank you for your support. Back in Florida, Tony is sitting poolside speaking to Beansy. Tony shares that Paulie worries him sometimes due to just how much he loves to talk. Tony adds that he fears Paulie may in fact end up turning against him or flipping on him if crew members, including Tony, were to ever get arrested and brought up on charges. Beansy assures Tony that Paulie is a stand-up guy, but Tony counters by asking whether or not Paulie has ever been put to the test. Beansy cannot answer, but he tells Tony that Paulie only has the life, the crew members, Tony, and his image to be proud of. Beansy further adds that Paulie talks to strangers because he does not have a family of his own to talk with or talk of, and that while others have their wives, kids, and businesses to talk about, Paulie only has his old memories of the past that make him feel whole. Tony decides after his conversation with Beansy that it would be better to get rid of Paulie once and for all rather than taking his chances. Later on that night, Silvio calls Tony to share good news about the Willie Overall murder. Silvio shares that Larry Breezy shared with the FBI that Jackie Aprile was the one who whacked Willie, not Tony. Tony is happy to hear the good news. In another scene, we see Professor Lynch, the man who walked in on one of Junior's poker games, has snitched on Junior, and his games have been shut down. When Lynch meets Junior by the board game table, Junior ends up viciously attacking Lynch, and this causes Junior's doctors to increase the dose of his medication. Immediately after taking his new dosage, Junior is constantly sleepy and aloof, unlike his usual self. Junior then devises a plan to fool the guards into looking away when he goes to drink his medication. He tasks Chong with yelling outside his doorway right as the healthcare workers come to give him his pills. This works until one day when Junior is at his table telling jokes again. He gets up to use the restroom, but one of his fellow medical patients asks him to share an additional joke. Junior shares another joke, but he ends up urinating on himself. When Junior is brought to see the doctor shares that he knows Junior is not taking the medication because he peed himself, and he has more energy than ever before. The doctor gives Junior an ultimatum that he can either take his medication as prescribed or be transferred to a state institution. Junior folds under the pressure and begins to take his medication again. This, however, makes Chong deeply upset because he feels Junior is turning his back on him and their friendship. Chong looks up to Junior and sees him as the father figure he wished he had. When Chong is visited by his mother, we learn that Chong's efforts were never good enough for his family. This leads Chong to seek the validation of Junior, and now that Junior is allowing himself to be controlled, Chong no longer looks up to Junior, nor does he see him as the alpha he thought he was. Later on, when Junior is singing along with the choir, Chong throws paper balls at the class as they are singing. Junior turns around and gestures at Chong to stop, and Chong erupts into a rage. Chong lunges at Junior and beats him mercilessly until the guards come to separate the two. In the end, Uncle Junior is seen with the rest of the patients in his facility playing with animals as part of their group therapy. We do not see Chong, indicating that he was transferred out. The relationship Chong and Junior develop is meant to mirror the relationship the mob bosses have with their capos and associates. At first, Chong respected Junior, even feared him, but the moment Junior demonstrated weakness under pressure, Chong tried to take him out. Chong also has daddy issues, like most of the men we see throughout the series. This lack of a positive male role model is almost part of what guides Chong toward looking up to Junior so adamantly, like many of the capos and soldiers look up to their bosses respectively. As we catch back up with Tony and Paulie, Tony decides to celebrate the good news he received from Silvio regarding the Willie Overall case. Tony says he wants to rent out a boat and head out to sea with Paulie. While on the fishing boat, Tony asks Paulie repeatedly to confess that he was the one who spilled the fat joke about Jeannie Sack to Johnny Sack. Paulie denies having any information on the matter, even though we know it was him that told the joke to Johnny all along. Tony contemplates whether to take out Paulie once and for all and decides not to, tossing him a beer instead. That same night, Paulie has a dream where he sees Salvatore Bompensero cooking a meal. Paulie asks Salvatore if when his time comes, will he be allowed to stand. This prompts Paulie to wake up immediately. He starts lifting weights, and he sends an espresso machine to Carmela as a gift. When Carmela receives the gift, she is shocked and asks Tony what is wrong with Paulie, and Tony says she should be thankful for men like Paulie because they allow him to afford the lifestyle he can provide his family.
Well, you told him, right? It's no big deal.
That was episode number 80, titled Remember When. To watch the next or previous episode summary, click on the link in the description or at the end of this video. In the description, you will also find additional links for supporting our channel. I'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye.
I'm gonna grab some Danish for the road.
We upload new videos every week, so subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the like button as well. Click the notification bell to be notified of when we upload these videos. See you on the next episode of Culture Screen.